Hi, my name is Jesse Durham, and today's episode is going to be concerning financial IQ. So we'll be looking through our lens of becoming your own banker. So for those that are vetting this idea, or those that are already clients and practicing with your policies, let's look at the concept of a financial IQ. Now, what we could say to start off is that becoming your own banker, the infinite banking concept, as described in R. Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, is the antithesis of this conventional set it and forget it mentality. Now, what I mean by that is, much like from my own experience as an employee, my background as a teacher in the state of North Carolina, and also in law enforcement, in both of those professions, we would have particular plans that were given to us, like there may have been a state retirement, which there was in each of those situations, a state retirement wherein I had zero control over how funds were being invested, how much access, of course, was completely limited. So there was that aspect in that financial part of my career, in each of those careers. And then, of course, there were options to do, 401ks, Roth IRAs, etc., just many different things, 503. So all these different things where the mentality was, we showed up once a year where someone would march in front of the room, tell us that we should be investing, make a good story or two about or needing to plan for retirement and various things. And I wouldn't know that person. I'd never met that person before. And yet I was encouraged to put money into systems that I didn't own and control. There were so many restrictions. I mean, you're even limited on how much you can put into, something like a Roth IRA or a 401k. So anyway, however, you could put as much as you want in many speculative areas. Let's not talk about that, into the stock market or whatever. And I'm not bashing on the stock market. I'm just saying there's something to be noticed right there. So that's my own background. That's my own experience, that a stranger would come into the room and I was supposed to put money into something that I didn't own and control. And there's just so many variables where I assumed all the risk, where all the restrictions were against me. Set it, forget it, don't touch it. Park your money here, leave it there for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Okay, just in the expectation, the hope, the prayer that you would have something there. Hopefully growth. But then again, what was the guarantee there? However that is. I'm not saying you invest how you would choose to, but I am speaking from my experience, and I'm asking us to consider some things. If you do choose to do that, why? Because what I could say now is that I did not know then anything outside of, maybe I knew a couple things about my 401k. Maybe I knew whether I had picked a low, a moderate, or a high designation of risk tolerance that I had. And maybe I knew whether my overall number went up or down quarterly if I looked at my statement. Other than that, I didn't know anything about my 401k. And yet I was paying into that, assuming all the risk, giving the controls to someone else to access my capital, my money, to be able to use for their own purposes, again, while I'm assuming all the risk, all the exposure to market volatility, with no guarantee that it wouldn't go to zero. All right, so why then? That's just my question. I'm asking us to think. Why are you doing that? Do you know why you're doing it? Could you explain it to yourself? You don't have to explain it to me. Remember here, I'm promoting the idea that we can become our own banker. So that means that I'm encouraging you to consider becoming your own banker. And if you choose to invest in a 401k or an IRA, any other qualified plan, awesome. Do you know why you're doing that? Food for thought. Now, Nash was an absolutely prolific, exhaustive reader. He even ends his Becoming Your Own Banker book with many, many, many suggestions on other books that he would encourage you to read about Austrian economics, the stock market. I mean, just many different subjects. So he was constantly reading, and there are references throughout his work. There are biblical references. There are other references to. So he was obviously encouraging us to, yes, learn, vet, understand the idea of becoming your own banker and how to do that. And yet he was very open about other books that he had read and would suggest and things. So I love that. I'm always reading myself. I like to read something for pleasure. I like to read for something that's relevant in the key areas of my life, whether that's my marriage. I like reading, in particular about the area of marriage, in particular about the area of fatherhood, being a father of 3 children myself. In the area of physical fitness, health, nutrition, that sphere, I love that. All these different areas that are important. Personal finance would obviously make mention here while we're talking about financial IQ. And I actually got that idea of financial IQ from Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I know that just by mentioning that name that I might be drawing a line in the sand. Not me, but others will perhaps see that I'm drawing a line in the sand. I've read behind different camps, folks who will name drop and throw shade, who would speak in a derogatory fashion of others against each other. But I've read behind the Dave Ramseys. I've read behind the Robert Kiyosakis. Obviously, I highly encourage, reading the Bible for those that the Bible's important. Maybe for those that the Bible's not an important read. Maybe it's not on your radar. There is a lot there. The book of Proverbs, amazing, but many other places as well. Matthew chapter 25. And there are several references in Nash's work, so I don't hesitate to mention scripture there, even if we're only looking at it for personal finance information and knowledge. It's a great resource. Nelson referenced it. I'll reference it. And of course, the Becoming Your Own Banker book is a book that I read and reread, at least on an annual basis myself, because there is more and more of that material that settles in my mind, in my thinking. Remember, Nash would always encourage us to rethink our thinking, to question, to ask. And as we, for those that are clients, those that already have policies, as we practice the infinite banking concept, more sinks in. He would also commonly say more is caught than taught. So it's valuable that we read. It's valuable that we actively decide and choose and participate in elevating our financial IQ. And yet a book will not replace what we do. A book will not replace what we can learn by going through the actual steps ourselves in financing our automobiles through our own privatized banking system, financing a vacation through our own bank. Just fill in the blank right there. Buying business equipment, whatever the case may be, for us as a household, as an investor, as a business owner, becoming our own banker, the actual practice of the infinite banking concept. So I can appreciate and I enjoy and I feel like I can glean the best parts and perhaps leave the refuse, leave the chaff, okay, if you will, from any of these sources. I like it how Dale Carnegie would say that. He said this in How to Win Friends and Influence People. He said that every man is my superior in some way, and in that I learn of him. So Dave Ramsey has done amazing things as a business owner in marketing, in amassing and deploying and utilizing capital. Cash is king, right? That's a big theme there. Helping many, 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 many people get out of debt. Robert Kiyosaki has the best-selling personal finance book of all time. The last time that I checked, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's been a very revealing read. It's often a highly referenced first book in personal growth development or finance, personal finance. It was one of the very first books that I read when personal growth and development got on my radar back in 2015. And I can appreciate all the aspects, is what I'm saying, that these folks bring to bear. And there are some classics out there. I mean, if I had to name some, the Millionaire Next Door, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, Think and Grow Rich, The Richest Man in Babylon. I mean, so there are many. And of course, again, Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash, his second book, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth. So there is massive. I actually just finished reading recently this 1,000 plus page. Look at that. This 1,000 plus page copy of Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. I'd heard the title before over the years, saw that it was 1,000 pages long, and even as an avid reader, I've read a couple of books that were that long before, and they were certainly for pleasure. They weren't for thinking, and that one was a little bit of both. That was a great thinking book, mind-opening book, and yet it was enjoyable, had a story like. So again, regardless of whether you're an avid reader or not, I mean, there are really simple books out there. The Richest Man in Babylon, it's story-like. It's an easy read and it's enjoyable read. You could do that with children. Of course, Nash's book, it's 92 pages, large print, lots of illustrations. You can read it in a couple of hours if you want. Or, again, you could take your time, reread it, and keep learning. So there's lots and lots of material out there. So I guess one of the biggest things that I would ask us to consider is, do we have an actual plan in play? Are we actively seeking to grow, learn, develop our financial IQ? Right now, even after having read, many books from Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the Cash Flow Quadrants, the Midas Touch, Why We Want You to Be Rich, several different books. I'm making my way through his guide to investing now. So, do we have a plan? Are we actively and strategically improving, growing our financial IQ? Because there are so many subjects out there. Cash flow, passive income, retirement, profit and loss, risk mitigation, the banking function. Many people just don't understand that. Insurance. Nash would constantly be saying that most people's understanding of insurance is based off of someone else's misunderstanding of insurance. And there are just so many different things, net worth, that merit our study. Now, I'm not trying to get bogged down in deep waters. What I would say is start right where you are. If you're a household, who controls the banking function in your life? As a household, if you're a small business owner, who controls the banking function for your business? Is it you or is it someone else? Where do you warehouse your capital? Who owns that? Who controls that? Who is controlling the banking function in your life? If you're an investor, if you are investing, whether that's something that you do full-time, I know plenty of folks that they invest full-time. That's what they do. I know many of folks, just like myself, that are employees that also have some traditional investment or that also do something on the side. So whether it's a side hustle, whether it's what you do full-time, it doesn't matter. Who's controlling the banking function in your life is the most simple place to start in assessing where are we at in our financial IQ. Do you even know what I mean when I'm asking? And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, because I'm all about us learning. I'm all about us understanding. This isn't me trying to share with you any information that would lead you to have me be your banker. No, I'm here to encourage you to become your own banker. I don't want you to be my banker. I want to be my own banker for my business, for my household, mine and my wife's, and teach that to our children so that that's their starting place, that they have a financial IQ that starts out higher than where I started out. Such a term wasn't even on my radar to 2015, and I was approximately 30 years old. I'm actually recording on my birthday today, so that sounds about right. Approximately 30 years old before I knew, heard, or understood any of these concepts, such as net worth, the banking function, so many different things. So being able to elevate their starting point in their financial IQ is a great joy for me. So, regardless of our come from, where we can start at is who controls the banking function in our life. What is our financial IQ in that regard? Are we just starting? Great. Get into Nash's book. 92 pages, big print, lots of illustrations, Becoming Your Own Banker. You can read it in a couple of hours if you want to. Okay? If you're not willing to read the book, you're probably not listening to this if you're not willing to read the book. But if you are vetting the idea, it could be that book. It could be Building Your Warehouse of Wealth. Of course, Nash's second book at that point. It could be having a conversation. It could be getting some questions answered. So again, having a plan in place to learn, read, grow, converse, practice. The idea is the infinite banking concept, sure, but becoming your own banker means putting it into practice. It's all conversation until somebody writes a check. And on that note, there are plenty of folks that will spend more money on scratch-offs. They'd spend $20 on scratch-offs and wouldn't spend $20 on a book that could liberate them from what I would say is financial slavery, having abdicated the banking function to someone else and being beholden to them. Okay? So again, here, you do what you want with your money. If you want to buy scratch-offs, buy scratch-offs. I would still say, what if you could account for the banking function in your life and still spend your money on scratch-offs the way you want? So I'm not trying to paint an either-or position of practice the infinite banking concept or buy scratch-offs if you want to buy scratch-offs. But the idea that many folks would do something that would be gambling, or that would be perhaps speculative, or that would even be legitimate and genuine, authentic investing, and yet would not spend any amount of time or money towards an education, towards reading something, towards going to an event, towards having coffee or lunch with somebody that could explain some things and speed up our learning curve. Any of these other number of things that we can do to actively grow our financial IQ. Folks, it blows my mind. But again, he that has ears to hear, eyes to see, let him hear and see. Okay? There's definitely been a time where I wouldn't have appreciated it, wouldn't have been on my radar. I would have missed the opportunity to learn myself. But here we are now. You're at where you're at in your journey. I'm at where I'm at in my journey. And I'm here to promote the idea that you can become your own banker. So I hope that this conversation has been helpful. If you would like to continue this conversation and how to raise your financial IQ and how to apply the infinite banking concept in your life, in your business, in your investing, I'd love to be able to hear from you. You can reach me at 828-817-4223, or you can email durhamtalents@gmail.com. As always, this has been a great pleasure for me. I look forward to our next conversation. Have a great day. Take care.